Hello and welcome to the 21st Century Work-Life podcast. My name is Pilar and we are on episode 375 of this new season called Booknotes, where I dig out the notes I've made while reading a book. And when I say the notes, it's more like highlights. I've highlighted some passages and I just share them with you to see if we can have some reflections together, and also maybe you like the sound of the book, you can go and read it. So a little bit of book recommendations here as well. You can get hold of me over at Pilar at virtualnotdistant.com. Right, the book I wanted to share with you today, it's called Futureproof, 9 Rules for Humans in the Age of Automation, and it's by Roose. Now, if you've been listening to the show for a while, back last year, I'm in 2025 now, you might have heard a few of my guests and myself recommending the podcast Heart Fork. And it's a technology-based podcast by 2 podcasters, 2 journalists who, well, they're really funny. And Roose is one of them. So that's why I picked up this book, because I like what he says. And this book was actually written in 2022. Well, it was published in 2022, which is before ChatGPT 3.5 came out. And I think that is important because our conversation around technology, automation, AI, not even generative AI has evolved and changed. He changed how he thought about technology and automation as he was writing the book. But the book goes beyond just thinking about how to be human in the age of automation. Of course, it also talks about the relationship we have with technology, which I really like. So, as well as the content of the book, I was very interested in reading this book and seeing how the author writes about a subject they are very close to and how they draw from their own experiences, but they mix journalism with self-story, memoir, reflection, opinions, and he does it very, very well. So if you're interested in that kind of book and you enjoy that kind of writing, I recommend it too. Let's start with a reflection I found which fully resonates with me, and especially thinking of my relationship with remote work. And the quote is, "Technology can force us to study ourselves and figure out our strengths and limitations." And I fully agree. I think when we started to adopt technology to help us work online, we come across all sorts of things. And I even think we need to start to think whether that space is for us or can help us to reflect on what kind of knowledge worker we are or what kind of worker we are, depending on the technology we're using. What we think our work is, what it isn't, or how we relate to our colleagues, to our customers, etc. And how having to adopt technology, whatever it is, changes that and how comfortable we are with that. Because sometimes it does go right back to the essence of who we are. Many of you will know, I'm writing, I'm getting to the end of it, a book called All the World's a Workplace, where I give an overview of remote work and I use bits of Shakespeare, adapted Shakespeare with it. And there's a chapter on asynchronous communication. And one of the things I address there is how by adopting more asynchronous communication, our identity can be challenged of who we are as a person. Again, the subtitle of Futureproof, the book I'm talking about, is 9 Rules for Humans in the Age of Automation. And I feel like sometimes there is this feeling that technology doesn't allow us to be as human as we want to be, whatever human means to you. And I think that actually it doesn't have to be like that. But anyway, that's what I think. But let's go back to the book. So Roose, of course, is comparing the kind of history period we're going through right now with the big bang of generative AI, but also other technologies, and compares it to another period in history. So I'll just read out for a bit here. "In many ways, the world today looks a lot like it did in 1845. New powerful machines have revolutionized industries, destabilized legacy institutions, and changed the fabric of civic life. Workers are worried about becoming obsolete, and parents are worried about what new technologies are doing to their children. Unregulated capitalism has created an extraordinary amount of new wealth, but workers' lives aren't necessarily getting better. Society is fractured along lines of race, class, and geography, and politicians are warning about the dangers of rising inequality and corporate corruption. And then in another bit he continues, history shows us that those who simply oppose technology without offering a vision of how it could be made better and more equitable generally lose. This was written in 2022, and I think now we're still there, and I think this is even more relevant now. And if you listen to podcasts like Hard Fork, you will hear all the different opinions for and against embracing technology, especially again, we're talking about generative AI because it's the hot topic still in 2025. But I think that it's really interesting that he puts it in the context of society and this thing about how it can fracture society even more, but actually it's also about the narrative we're giving it and what we're doing with it and how the whole of society and the people governing society are engaging with it. So I really like that throughout the whole book. It's not just about the technology, what it's doing to the individual, but placing it in a context where we can understand its wider implications. Having said that, what is also at the core of this book is the next quote I'm going to read with you. So at some point, we're still very near the beginning of the book, the author raises questions like, will owners share the profits from automation with workers, or will they hoard them for themselves and their investors? And then talking about whether technology will replace our jobs, he poses the question, will there be enough social and economic support for people who can't make the jump from the old jobs to the new jobs easily? And then this is his reflection that I wanted to share with you. None of these are questions about machines. They are all about people. And here's another quote from the chapter where he talks about our use of devices. It's very much along the same lines. The difference between using our devices in a way that amplifies our humanity and a way that diminishes it usually comes down to who is doing the driving. Again, the technology is invented, the technology evolves, and it's what we do with it that matters. And I think now when we're at the beginning and we've just touched again on that word humanity, something from my own reflections is that humans, we're not always great, aren't we? And a lot of the time I'm thinking, especially when we talk about generative AI and how good it is for some things or not, we're always comparing it to the best part of human nature. So I think here when we're talking about humanity and comparing it and embracing humanity, I think we're really talking about the best parts of ourselves. So I think that's just worth bearing in mind. And continuing with Kevin's positive notes, he's talking about lockdown and mainly a lot of the conversations he was having on Zoom and a lot of his new experiences with technology. And he says that they resulted in positive experiences when they involve other people. And while technology makes the experience possible, I ultimately chose them, controlled them, and set the terms of my engagement. And if we look at how technology is adopted in the workplace, I think a lot of the times we can't offer this to people. It is the choice, it is the control of it, and it is setting the terms of engagement. This is one of the reasons why a lot of the times there's resistance to technology. We're not just resisting technology, it's because we haven't chosen it, we're not controlling it, and we haven't been able to set the terms of our engagement with it. And that's where a lot of resistance comes. I think we need to be very aware of when people are not embracing technology. It's a lot more complicated than, oh, they don't like tech or they're born in the wrong generation that doesn't like tech. No, it's look at how they're being asked to adopt it. Or look at how they think they should adopt it. Does it give them control over it? Is it about using it in the way they want to use it? Or do they feel like they have to use it in a way that actually they don't want to? And for things they don't want to? I really like that. It's about choice, it's about having control over it, and about setting the terms of your engagement with technology. All right, so I mentioned that there's a bit where, of course, Kevin, the author, is looking at, I feel like I know him. It's this kind of parasocial relationship because I listen to him and every week I feel like I know them. Hopefully you feel like you know me too, even though we might never have met. He's talking about how jobs are going to be affected by technology, by automation in particular. People who are skilled at creating social and emotional experiences will be better positioned for the future than people whose primary skill is making or doing things efficiently. I'll carry on. A good general rule is that jobs that make people feel things are much safer than jobs that simply involve making or doing things. And then he says how when he realized that, he stopped doing formulaic corporate earning stories and started writing stories that required more creativity and revealed more of my personality. And it goes back to why I enjoyed the book so much as well, because I was looking at the style and how there's so much of him in it. Of course, it's very well written. He's a journalist too. I think that is quite important, and it speaks to me. I don't know if it speaks to you a lot about how you focus your work or how you see your work, but I decided some time ago that if I was going to write, it had to be something that could only be done by me. Because again, we're starting to get technology where at the press of a button can even in 2025 churn out some decent stuff. But then what is worth writing? What is worth writing? I've never been a very just like a how-to person kind of writer. I've said this before. So this really resonated with me, the fact that it's about helping people feel things. And again, I think that's quite interesting. I'm also, because I've started teaching Pilates, I'm also understanding why I want to teach that practice and what I can give to the people who are in my classes. So that's also really resonating with me. Okay, well, I've got a couple of highlights which I've then labeled as outrageous, and they come from the chapter on Learn Machine Age Humanities. Remember, this is about 9 rules for humans in the age of automation. So under Learn Machine Age Humanities, there is a section called Resting. And he says, at Harvard University, incoming freshmen are now required to take an online course known as Sleep 101. And I put that down as outrageous. Basically, what he's talking is the need to be able to rest. And part of rest is sleep. And how he has to put that in a book, which I find outrageous. Then, at Stanford, for example, students can take a seminar called Becoming Kinder, which teaches them about the psychology of altruistic behavior. So, getting on my soapbox, you know that comment I was making earlier about how we want to be more human? Look at what's happened. The kind of world of work that we have created, or that has evolved, where we now have to go back to teach people how to sleep and how to become kinder. So anyway, as I said, I found that outrageous. Let's go to more fluffy bits. I like to learn new words and new terminology when I'm reading, although that's not my main reason for reading. It's pleasure. But I do find things. So let me just dig through. I think I learned about 2 or 3 words, phrases. So the first one is phone snubbing. And that describes the act of avoiding interactions with someone in favor of using your phone. Now, sometimes I've done that. When I don't want to talk to someone, usually when I'm in a room of strangers, or if I'm in a situation where there's another person that I don't know, whatever. If you look at your phone, no one interrupts you, or people tend not to interrupt you. So, phone snubbing. To be honest, if I'm talking to someone that I don't know very well and they pick up their phone, I'll just, I might leave them to it. The next one is idleness aversion, from being idle. And they talk about how we becoming, and I can say that, yes, me too. We are a little bit addicted to our phones. And then a psychologist said, it's not really the phone. The phone is just the drug delivery device. The bigger issue is figuring out how to be alone with your own mind. Psychologists call this problem idleness aversion. I have that and I'm working on it. And then there's another one. The term workism, as defined by the writer Derek Thompson, and it's the belief, common especially among type A millennial overachievers, that work is not just an economic necessity, but the primary source of identity and meaning in our lives. And it's not workaholism, it's workism. I think that this says a lot about also how generative AI in particular and automation has been embraced, which is all about working more, not working less or working better. And then the author carries on saying, this is the problem with hustle culture. It's that in the age of AI and automation, hustling is actually counterproductive. No matter how hard you work, you simply cannot outwork an algorithm. If you try, not only will you lose, but you will sacrifice your unique human advantages in the process. And then my last term is the adjacent possible, a term coined by the evolutionary biologist Stuart Kauffman to describe the way biological organisms evolve in gradual incremental steps. And then let's carry on. A world in which robots flawlessly perform all human labor, freeing us all up to make art and play video games every day, is probably not part of the adjacent possible. But a world in which we use machine intelligence to reduce carbon emissions, find cures for rare diseases, and improve government services for low-income families might be. It's on us, the people who love technology but worry about its use, to explore this adjacent possible and push for the best version of it. And then I wanted to share this reflection on why some people appear to be wanting to develop AI, generative AI or technology or automation or incorporate it into their businesses really fast without thinking about it too much, because it's a very interesting reflection of why it might be happening. So at the beginning of the book, he talks about Tom, who's a business leader, who's telling him how he's so proud that he's incorporated so much automation into his business, saving him lots of money. And then the author says, I've realized that I underestimated the number of people like Tom in the world, decent, ethical leaders who are embracing automation not because they're greedy, but because they're scared. They don't want to become obsolete. And they believe, correctly or not, that automating jobs is the only way for their organizations to survive. And in a way, we might be getting ourselves into a catch-22 where AI companies are going, okay, we've got to be first, go. Oh, they're first, we've got to, you've got to be there before them, we've got to beat them to it. And then on the other hand, you have people who are saying, well, it looks like I need to be incorporating AI, I need to be adopting more technology, more automation, because my neighbors or my competitors are doing it. And in this, I think we're starting to lose some perspective on what the technology is for. So before we wrap up, I just have to say there's a little nod to something that I that I also am not sure I like, which are the technology that is used in remote work to keep tabs on people. And I like this reflection on it. These are things like when you're monitoring what people are doing, the keystrokes and the keyboard, or how much time people are at their computer. These apps automate the worst qualities of bad human managers while improving nothing about the work itself. I just love that. I had to put that one in. And then I will leave you with one of his final reflections, which just talks about the book's core thesis. We can protect ourselves from AI displacement by becoming better at the types of deeply human work that is hardest for machines to do. Well, thank you so much for letting me share these thoughts with you. It's very motivating, and it's a great push for me to go back to books that I've read. I made lots of notes and then never came back to them, to be able to share them with you. And I did very much enjoy Futureproof. I only read it a couple of months ago. So I've got a couple of things to bring to you as my personal updates. And well, the first one is actually, as well as the non-fiction book I'm recommending today, and I'm deeply recommending Futureproof to you. If you like nice, simple, but very well written books and don't mind that they are grounded in a romantic relationship, I recommend You Are Here by David Nicholls. And David Nicholls has written One Day, wrote Starter for 10. And this one, You Are Here, again, is just a very simple story with lots of characters, seeing things from 2 points of view. It's really sweet. It's a nice, comfy book, let's just say. On writing news, would you believe it, I am struggling with the chapter on leadership in All the World's a Workplace. I think because my focus has been always on this leading in the online world and the need to find ways to collaborate online, which actually means that we can self-organize a lot better, which then, of course, going back to the theme of identity, can challenge the identity of many team leaders, especially, or managers, so that at a smaller level, as in a lower organizational structure level. And I think I have so much to say that I don't know where to start. But of course, I've already said a lot through a chapter on visible teamwork. So I really have to narrow down on, okay, what is the team leader's role in the online space? I'm getting there. I've struggled. I've now got into it. And I've drawn from the fact that I always thought that the online space is much better for self-organization because of the visibility of the work, if you do it well, of course. And my own interest when I was running a theatre company in creating an ensemble and facilitating other people creating work around the core that was the company. So I think I found my link, and now I just need to make sure that I can find something that is of use to the reader, really. But I have to say that, and you won't hear me say this a lot, but I think I've got a little bit of imposter syndrome. So much so that I started to search for books on imposter syndrome. But when I read what they were saying, I think that that's too big a word for what I'm feeling, which is just that I just know too many people who are really hot in the topic and people who've guided organizations, remote organizations through change, and people who've been leading huge global teams for ages, and I haven't done any of that. I have, of course, seen a lot of it and reflected a lot of it and spoken to lots of people about their experiences and tried to connect at the personal level at what is stopping the people from growing or from doing their best in this environment. But there is a little bit of that, really, do I know enough about it? So, yeah, but not enough to block me, just enough to make me think of going back to what I was saying earlier in the other part about what is it that I have to say that is of value to the reader. So I'm there at the moment. And then talking about learning, my last update is I've started again going to singing lessons in central London in one of these adult education centers, and I love it. Because it's for pure pleasure. It's part of a choir. So it's not a choir where we go and we are all the time preparing to perform. We're there to learn. And so the atmosphere is fantastic. And we are singing all kinds of things. We're singing something from Wicked, a song I didn't know, For Good. Yeah, I can't sing on the podcast just in case I sing for too long and then I'm breaching copyright. I'm okay with the books. And we are also singing a classical song that is doing my head in because I'm exhausted when I sing it. The breathing is so long. You need so much breath to get through the phrases. And even my super Pilates breathing that I'm so proud of is not really taking me through. Although, to be honest, I think what's happening is I'm teaching on Sunday mornings to classes. And then I'm practicing on Sunday night. And I just think sometimes I feel like my muscles are tired, and they are. But it's great. It's fantastic to be with a teacher that is really good. He can do it. He can sing. You can see him. He sings all 4 parts. He's very good at conducting us. He is very, very charming, very witty, and is able to say things that actually mean, for example, that it was terrible. But he says them elegantly and make sure that we can be better and that we don't lose the spark, because sometimes we are sounding absolutely horrible, but that's okay. And that's another thing that I'm loving, is being able to be very bad, and it doesn't matter. I'll give you one specific example. There was a phrase that ended in S. I don't know, say, for example, glass. And of course, we had to sustain that last word, so glass. And then we all had to come in together at the S. And I made the S really strong, glass. And then when we stopped, we said, oh, that's good. There was an S that lasted a bit too long. It was here around the altos. And I said, yeah, it was me. And he said, strong, but wrong. That was fabulous. So yeah, that's the kind of environment I want to be in. I want to be able to do something, try something, because especially with singing, unless you sing out, how are you going to sing? And okay, in a choir, you've got to also balance that you're not standing out, because then you're not doing a good job. But at the same time, as you're learning, you can't already be looking for perfection as you're learning. So it requires that feeling. Until then, you can, okay, well, that wasn't it. That's fine. And now I pull back. I've also learned how to stop singing when I'm not sure. So I'm telling you two opposing things, but I think they both have their place. Because when you're singing and you're learning something, if you're always singing quite loudly, you're not listening enough, and then you're not correcting yourself when you're doing it wrong, of which I'm still not there with a lot of the songs. So yeah, I just thought some, sharing what I'm up to, and hopefully this has entertained you, maybe also been of some help, who knows. But mainly I just wanted to come here with you and entertain you with whatever you're doing and wherever you are. So thank you so much for listening. My name is Pilar Orti,